Hello and welcome. My name is Philip Ramos, and thank you so much for joining me today here. We are super excited for our guest speaker today here with the Spotlight series. What we're doing is we're interviewing people that are finding success in their roles, finding success in what they're doing, identifying how their strengths influence them in these roles and what they're doing and how they're participating. And so it's super excited to interview different people, different perspectives, where they at in their journey, identifying the strengths that influence them and maybe some of the strengths that they're struggling with as well. Because let's be honest, we all do. We all do. So without any further ado, I want to welcome my guest today, and that's Nicole Moultrie. Nicole, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. How can I match your energy, Philip? That's going to be my goal.
I
I
love it.
remember listening to a voice text, I think it was first when we were being introduced, and I was like, man, this guy is good. So happy to be here. Let's
Excellent.
dive in.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't tell you the value that I've seen this provide for not just not just for the person obviously meeting, but also the other people that get to watch, they get to understand. Because I think, and I mentioned this before, not everybody operates the we operate, right? And everybody has the same strengths as we do. And so really seeing, our individuality, our uniqueness come out and other people to see, well, oh, she can do it or he can do it. Surely I can do it. And I think that's one thing that, thank you for commenting on my energy because that's one thing I've diminished a lot in my life is my light. I'm like, oh, I'm too much. But now that I'm like, you know what? I'm the perfect temperature
Perfect
for the
amount.
room. I love
Perfect amount.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into this and tell us about yourself. Tell us about the roles you're playing, give us a little intimate peek into Nicole Moultrie's life.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna pull back the curtain a little bit. It's scary. I won't say it's messy because I am a little bit of a clean freak. So, people are like, you don't want to open the closet, everything will fall out. Things might fall out, but it's gonna be organized.
It's your responsibility,
So
right?
that's right. That's right. We've already dove into my strengths a little bit, and I'm sure we will a little bit more. But I am a wife, a mother of three. Philip and I were talking earlier about the things that come with age, and it's wild to think that I have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old. When I first started with doTERRA, I had one child, and they are certainly not babies anymore. They're oil babies, but they are growing with very vibrant lives. We are super involved in sports. We're very active. And we used to joke and say, it was like God doTERRA family, and now it almost feels like we've got God basketball doTERRA somewhere
I love
mixed
it.
in there.
That's great.
But business owner, I've been with doTERRA for 12 years at this point, and I love it. I am super passionate about it. I always joke, not joke, I always tell people like I'm never going anywhere. I have found a home. I have found a place to, stake my investment, and I wear a lot of hats. I wear a lot of hats, that's for sure.
No, I love that. And I love that, I love the idea of the stake and, where you're going. And I think, again, going back to the conversation we had about your futuristic, right? I think that so often we do when we know who we are, right? And those things, we know why we make these decisions, we can lean even more aggressively into them.
Amen.
And
Amen.
we can own them and say, okay, this is what I have. This is why am I doing this? Why am I making this decision? And I love, futuristic at number one, you know where you're going, right?
I know where I'm going.
You see it, right?
I often will joke and tell like a new leader that's coming on. I'm like, I've already got everything planned out for you. I've already planned your life. Like I've got when you're hitting this point at this place, and just wait. I've already got it planned out. So
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that. I love that. That's you bringing the best version of you to help them. That's awesome.
yes,
That's awesome. All right. So now you took the assessment. So now, if I remember your report, you
yes.
took it back in like 2018, right? So you've had your
Gosh,
2017 right around there, right? Okay.
right around there.
So you've had it for quite some time. You've like yourself, your report, that sort of thing. Now, when you first took it, because people have different experiences, right? What were your first initial
Right.
thoughts? You take this report, you see them, and you're like, ugh, what pops?
I think similar to you, it was something that was suggested, and I think all of us have taken some type of personality test. So I was thinking it would be something similar to like, oh, you're red or you're blue or you're yellow. And you kind of identify these things that one thing I've learned through strengths is everybody likes to learn about themselves.
Yes.
Everybody likes to talk about themselves. And so I was like, oh, this will be a great way for my leaders. This will be some other fun thing for, I'll take it first and then we'll see and we'll roll it out to leaders.
Yeah.
I don't think I anticipated, I know I didn't at all, the value that the assessment was going to bring, not only to me, but my team for the next decade. Like I couldn't, you could, no one could anticipate that, or certainly I did not,
Sure. Sure.
because we went on this strengths bender of eating, drinking, sleeping, training strengths. It was like we would walk down the street and I'd be like, oh, I wonder what their top five are. Or someone would take it. Someone would take the assessment and we'd be like, I knew it. You have
Yes.
activator. You know, like it just became something that we were consumed with and we loved it. And I was fortunate enough to get to help put the strengths guide together and train on the strengths guide. And we do these panels and we at leadership, it was the coolest thing when we were helping people to identify their strengths, come with the assessment taken. We're going to find out more about ourselves. And I know I said that we like to talk about ourselves, but I don't think we really know ourselves on some of these levels that strengths really helps us to identify. So first taking it, had no idea the value it was going to bring to me, for sure.
I agree with that. It took me a while, and I mentioned, my experience of, not
Mm-hmm.
reading it, then reading it 10 months later. And I think one of the biggest things that it helped me understand is that identify, right, who I am, but also who I'm not, right? And I don't need
Yeah.
to be this person, right? I'm not, we talked a little bit about mine and what that looks like, but it's okay. Like, I'm not this way. It doesn't mean I'm good, doesn't mean I'm bad. And one of the great things that Gallup has identified is that what we're identifying is that just because you have these strengths doesn't mean that you can do this role or can't, right? But that you can bring everything you are to the role and find joy and passion and success and engagement, right? That you can be successful in that. And that's one of the things in talking to leaders such as yourself or other people that are, in the process of building their businesses, creating teams, leading teams,
Oh,
is that when we bring the best version of ourselves, we want to be in that game, right? We want to be doing that. We want to be excited about that, and that we can all have there's space for all of us to show up in
yeah.
these roles, right?
I love the idea, and my husband will always say this, he's a coach, but he talks about like everybody loves to do what they're good at. So
Yes.
why not put them in a position to be able to be doing what they're good at the most?
Yes.
So we'll often talk about, a basketball team is five people out there. I don't want five of the same type of player there. I need someone that's big underneath, or I need a wing, I need a shooter, I need someone that can handle the ball differently. And I love that you said, like who we don't have to be or who we are. Like there's such freedom in that. I think you mentioned the word earlier, hope. I think it's just a breath of fresh air for people, specifically in this business model in network marketing, because to your point earlier, you see something, you see a certain way someone has created success. You're like, okay, I need to copy and paste that. And
Yes.
when we're not living authentically, it feels icky or hard, or there's absolutely no flow. And there's enough resistance and friction points, and this business is hard enough, let alone any business is hard enough, that like let's just try to be doing what we're best at the most, and
Yeah.
that will bring the flow, that will bring the joy, that will bring the engagement, like you said. And so it really is breath giving,
Yes.
not breathtaking, breath giving,
Yeah. Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
100%. I love it. I love it. Now, so you took the report. I love that you were living, breathing. You're identifying.
Yes.
I bet they have this. I bet they have that. So
So
in
silly.
the strengths journey and in the strengths process, and for yourself, even as you started to dive into all of this, What was the thing that stood out the most for you? What was the thing that, a theme or a concept? What was the thing you gravitated to when it came time to strengths? You're like, ooh, what was that for you?
Mm, that is a really good question. It's funny you said that. So two things came to mind. I had immediate faces of leaders come to my mind as you said that. And as a leader, I think all of us, I always tell people, you're a leader whether you like it or not. You just are. And as a leader, we ought to be worried and focused on what's best for the team. How am I going to help the team or lead this army of volunteers? How can I inspire them? How can I motivate them? How can I help them to become their best version of themselves? So for me, the two things I thought that one of the concepts that really stood out is like, oh, this is so great. This is why you do things this way, or this is why you react this way. And this is how you've been able to create this team different from this leader and different from this leader. And so it was great as a leader being able to identify how I could help that leader even more.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that really stood out, or I really loved that. And then for me personally, it was really fun to continue to lean and develop specifically those top five,
Okay.
because I'm like, okay, why am I, if I'm a fantastic football player, why am I playing basketball? Why am I trying to develop these things that are not naturally like my gifts or my talents? And so that was really fun to lean in to develop those top five.
I think that's one of the biggest things that, when we look at the value of strengths, is we know this, and specifically in this industry, this is one of those industries where when you come into it, you're coming in almost like you're a piece of clay, and
Mm,
and there's going to take some molding and some and some, oh, let me teach you this, let me guide this, right? But one of the greatest things that you can do in this industry is you can truly develop. You can truly become something magical from where you first started, and strengths gives us some tools to help us understand what do we need to develop, right? So I talk about this all the time. I have communication number 4. That does not mean I'm a good
no.
yeah, right. But that doesn't mean that I'm good at it. That doesn't mean I'm a good listener. It just means that I enjoy stories. I enjoy conversations.
Mm.
I want to talk. I want to engage in those kinds of languages.
You light up when you're
Yes,
doing it.
it
Yeah.
makes me laugh. Now, if I didn't come in and I didn't know that about myself, the only thing I would know is my parents saying, "You talk too much," or I'd be in environments, and, like friends and be like, "Philip, you talk too much," right? Or you talk too, and that was more of the feedback, growing up, or the feedback out in life, because in with strengths, we begin to identify and start to celebrate and start to harness and start to learn and start to develop,
I love it.
grow, because we know what we're trying to grow. So I looked at communication when I first saw that, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, because that I was told that's the wrong thing to do, right? But then when I look, oh, how can I use this as a tool? How can I flip this thing of communication and develop it to make it the best version of myself? And that's what strengths gave me, is it gave me something to master about myself. Does that make sense? It like pointed something out and be like, okay, all right, now we're going to use this as we're going to write, because when we first take our assessment, these are just themes. They're just words on paper, and what they're shown as what are innate natural talents, meaning it naturally influences me. But how I turn it into a strength is I develop it into an application, right? And I turn
I
my
love it.
into something great. And so I think that I love that when you said that, when your leaders and these people, they take in the top 5, you're like, okay, now it's development time, and we know what to develop, right? We can start to pinpoint, say,
Mhm.
let's develop this out of you, or let's grow this out of you, that sort of thing. So I love that, identifying that, is how important that is and how crucial that is. So,
I love it. I'll share just really quick a story about this. We have a leader, and her number one strength is command.
oh, okay.
And you'll laugh because she took it on. We were doing a strengths kind of a training, and she either read it this way or this is truly who she is.
Right.
And she would call it Commander. And so we joked and we would call her Commander has entered the room or here's our commander. But the word that stood out is we were celebrating it,
Yes.
or maybe somebody might be like, gosh, you're so bossy or you're so domineering or whatever, fill in the blank. But it was so fun to see her be like, yep, commander's here, so it was
Yes, I am.
celebrated for sure. Yep, for sure.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And I think that again, I think that's a great example. And so we'll just a little tangent here. Most people don't know, but command is the least likely strength to find people in their top five. Out of all 34, it's the least likely.
She's
And
one of a
so, yeah.
kind.
And so when you get that, right, I think often it is such a strong strength that it can come off in a negative way. So people might have made her feel that way, or she didn't know how
Yep,
to develop or turn it into that. So maybe when that first, that first instinct was, oh, this, I don't know how good this is. Now you flip it into like, yes, I am the commander and I am commander,
yep,
right? You start to,
yep,
it starts to make you feel like, okay, now how do I turn it into something to get what I want, right? To
yep, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So of all, your strengths we mentioned already, we've identified your futuristic, you and I also identified your responsibility, how your harmony plays in when people come in and come out, right? And I love that you see it that way, by the way. I think that's so awesome. Now, when you look at your strengths though, and maybe it's the combination, maybe it's, one individual, what do you see as your superpower? Like, what do you see and you're like, you know what? I know I got that on lock. And let me and why is that? Why do you feel that way about it?
It's a really good question. I know I keep saying that, but they're all really good questions. And as we delve in a little further, discipline, I think, is 7 or 8. Consistency is also there. And specifically in network marketing, it is a wash, repeat cycle. It is we teach, we enroll, and we do it again. And it is really, we have found, and this is again not saying everyone has to do it this way, but if you can have simple routines when you're an entrepreneur or some way to hold yourself accountable to simple, consistent steps, you can find success. You
Yes,
really, really can.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
that's not natural for people. And I would say leaning into those, I used to say like I'd get frustrated with responsibility because I'd be like, I can't go to sleep until this is done, or I did this, so I have to do this, like almost this. I felt like I was like handcuffed with responsibility. And my husband actually helped me see this a little bit differently. Strengths helped me identify it. And like that's a really incredible strength. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't have this strength, or maybe you're as handcuffed to it as I am. And so I would say for sure that is a superpower instead of the opposite of a superpower, something that is weighing me
Yes.
down. It is something that is actually affording me the goals that I want to achieve, is because I'm so darn responsible and disciplined,
Yes.
that I've been able to find success in whatever it is, not even just in network marketing, but whatever it is. And I'm sure, and it's funny, I have like I said, 3 different kids and 3 very different types of kids. And my daughter, I'm sure those are at the bottom of her assessment. And it is teaching me patience and understanding in the struggle of watching those not be someone's strengths. But it's definitely for sure a superpower of mine.
No, I love that. And I think that, I love what you said. When I come into any environment, anything I teach, anything, the number one thing before we can get to this idea of strengths, right, individuality, we have to identify the expectation. We have to identify the role, number one. And then number two, we have to identify the expectations. And when people don't do that, they don't know what to do, right? And you go back to it's the number one thing if you look at any Gallup research. it's the number one thing that's driving people away from their current jobs is ultimately they just don't know what to do.
Mm.
They're hired for a position, they have this job, they have these things. There's unspoken expectations, meaning they want them to have success, right? But that's really what they want. But how to get there and what to do is something that really is a common thing. Now, you just talked about being an entrepreneur. You step into entrepreneurship, you step into network marketing. We disassociate ourselves from a boss, right? Now we work
Right.
for ourselves. And let's be honest, I don't have high responsibility. I don't have high discipline. I get in this and I'm like, yeah, let's wing it, right? Let's have it. And I struggle. I no doubt about a struggle. And it wasn't until for me, I specifically am like, okay, Monday morning, what do I show up to work? Tuesday morning,
Yeah.
how do I show up to work? What do I do in this time frame that I'm actually doing my job so that I can? And so for me, that's so important to make sure that it's there so that it's not, because it's not a superpower of mine. So I think that I love that you can identify what is natural for you and what is driven success, right? You mentioned your closets, right? They're organized, right?
Yeah, they're
You mentioned,
organized.
you mentioned it so much, and I'm
Yeah.
sure sometimes we think, oh, responsibility only fits in one area of our life, but how we do anything is how we do everything. And responsibility,
Amen.
deliberate,
Amen.
I think all those things show up. So I love that you identify that. And then also probably as a leader, and maybe you can speak to this, do you often, right, see, because this is natural for you. Do you find a lot of people coming in this industry that's not natural for them, right? They don't
Yes.
naturally have high responsibility or naturally have, like your daughter. If you enrolled your
Oh
daughter
my
today in your
gosh.
business, what would that look like? What struggle would that look like, right?
This is so funny. And her name's Charlie, by the way. And I'm
Wait,
like,
what's her name?
Charlie,
Charlie?
Charlie.
Charlie, okay.
I'd be like, Charlie, if we are going to work together, sis, we have got to come to some understanding.
That's
No,
funny.
but I love that we're kind of going down this path a little bit because here's what strengths can do. Here's how strengths can help you is I know earlier you mentioned strengths has helped you to ask better questions. And so the more I understand myself and the more I understand my strengths and how I operate and when I'm my best version of myself, the easier it is for me to ask good questions and be able to pull those out of you as a leader. And so here's how I operate. Tell me how you feel or what happens when you do this or what is something that isn't natural to you. And you're like, I hate schedules. I hate routines. That's why I got into network marketing because I want to be my own boss. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we've got to get some stuff done. How does that work best for you? Is that like I'm going to time block and then I can free to work in my zone of genius? Then I can go and talk to people and I can go and network. And then when I have to actually do the structure part, I know I've got this much I got to focus on, and then I'm free to whatever. And
Yeah.
so I think strengths allows you to help people again, help you help me. Like if I know here's your strengths, I'm like, awesome. I am not going to put him in that box. He
Yes.
won't succeed. He will
Yes.
not be happy. He will not thrive. And again, going back to the team analogy, like we work so often as a team that I'm like, let's use Philip for sure is going to be our contact or our networker. Let's get him to get out there and find the people. Okay, who's great at marketing? Let's put this behind. Who wants to teach? Who's really excited about this? Let's utilize everyone's strengths. But definitely being able to ask questions is critical. But what I have found is they actually it gives them freedom
Mm.
and almost like a deep breath to be like, okay, great. I don't have to do it like you. People might admire the success or want to achieve something you've done A, B, and C, but they don't operate in A, B, and C. So if I can help someone to see that they can acquire this by doing a different way, that's when the magic happens.
100%. I admire your organized closets, but if I have to have organized closets to be successful, there's no way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I absolutely love it. No, and that's so true. That is so true. Simon Sinek, going back to that interview that he did with Jim Clifton, in the interview, he also talked about, he struggled with basically getting all his ideas out and in his processes until he surrounded himself with the right people. And I
Gosh,
think
so
that's because
true.
he identified the value that of other people's strengths. And I think that when you take those things in consideration, when you
Hmm.
take what you bring excellent to the table, then you can really let go and be like, okay, this is what I'm good at, but this is what I'm not good at. So who are the other people that I can surround myself around, right? I think that if we just understand that when we come into this business, I think we could be more patient, and we could be more
Yeah.
uplifting and more, take more time to develop, those people, because anybody can be successful, but we just got to figure out what is it that drives them along that journey, right?
Um, just to add a little to that, I think it's very interesting in network marketing, and specifically, we're talking here with doTERRA, which is our primary leadership is women, and for some reason, we women think we not only can we do everything, that we must do everything.
Sure.
And I can remember feeling like, and this again, probably part of my different strengths lineup is like, well, I can make the invite, I can do this, and I can do this. Like also, I can do it. Where what I have learned and leaning into my strengths and getting older and having a large organization is like, I actually can't do everything,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to do it as good as you. So
Yes.
because you're awesome in this area, why don't you take this?
I love that.
And it really initially is hard for
Sure.
someone like me, but later it's just so nice to just be like, letting that go, letting it go, and you do it better, you know?
Yes,
So
yes. I love that. I love that. Well, we've spent some time talking about your awesomeness, your superpower. Now, when you look at, because this is one thing that I think that we all got to come to, the grips with and acknowledge, is
yeah,
that these themes not just motivate, right, all that's great about us, but we can often overdo them. My positivity, for example, my wife and my communication, she could come home, and she has, right? And I've identified, 25 years of marriage, how many times I've done this. She'd come home, Philip, I'm hurt, I'm frustrated, I had a bad day. And what does my positivity and communication do? Hey, baby, turn that frown upside down. Don't you worry about it, right? And immediately, right, all of a sudden, I'm in trouble, right? Because I knew it, that what did she wanted? A friend, she wanted someone to vent to, she wanted someone to, a shoulder to cry on, someone to care. And let me be super clear, does it mean I don't? Does it mean I don't value her? Does it mean no? But it was just something so natural for me that it gets away from me,
yep,
right? I overdo it, and it just goes, and I'm like, oh, and I got to catch myself again, right? And I think that what most people don't know is that we have, all of us do it. We're so,
we all do it.
these processes are so ingrained in us, and we have to learn how to sometimes, whoa, ease up off the gas. I think about this, and like, if you're driving a
Yeah.
track, on a race car, in a race car track, and if you push that pedal at 100 miles an hour and then take that turn at 100 miles an hour, you're probably going to spin out. So if I do that same thing with my communication, my positivity, my activator, I'm going to burn out, and I'm going to cause some problems, right? So for yourself,
Yes.
what do you think, what do you feel like you struggle with the most, or where do you feel like maybe some of your hindrance, right? That maybe some of your strengths have kind of, they get away from you in moments, or maybe one specific one. What do you think that is for you?
We talked a little bit about it earlier, so I'm gonna just lean into that too. Great job at husbandry, by the way, for identifying that in your sweet wife. We all do it. We
Yes.
all do it for sure. I think at times futuristic, so futuristic is my number one strength. And while I do love it and I've learned to lean into it, I think specifically when you're launching someone new or someone that doesn't have any experience, like with any network marketing, let alone entrepreneurship or leading a team or teaching about product or marketing. Like we as wellness advocates or leaders, we wear so many different hats. And I have over a decade of experience. And so I can see, like, I'm putting all this together and I'm like, and here's everything for you, and you're going to go on all the sourcing trips and you're going to win all the award, all of that can be extremely overwhelming
For sure.
and meat before milk for people coming on. So I have learned through experience and not doing it the best way, because that's how we learn, by
Yes.
doing it wrong.
Yeah.
um, that isn't always the best approach for
Yeah.
people. It just can be too much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I love that you can acknowledge that, right? Because it doesn't mean that now, two things. Number one, you identified how it serves you, right? How it drives you. You probably use that very much for yourself and how you've built and created your business, and even in the changes or
Yep.
the things that are that are happening, you can still lean into that and be like, okay, this is what I can make it look like still,
This
or
would
this
be
is what I want
great.
it to look like, right?
Yeah.
And but then on the flip side, you take someone like me or someone else you're working with or the other leaders that you have, and to have that level of expectation of, well, I can do it. Why aren't you doing it? Right? Yeah,
Yes.
that right there can create an enormous wedge because what you do so naturally, other people can't. And we can, and then we force it on them, right? So going back to my wife,
Yes.
I'm forcing positivity, right? I'm forcing certain things, and then it all it does is creates contention. It creates, and so I'm sure in your where you're at in your role as the leader, and you have other leaders that work with you, making that assumption that because you can see it, they should be able to see it, or and that they can be motivated. That could be difficult, right? That could cause some
Yes.
awkward conversations or some frustrations, right?
I am heavily nodding because of experiences um, in that realm for sure, absolutely. And the sooner that we can recognize and allow ourselves to, what do I want to say? Almost just, oh, I don't know quite know how to articulate it, but just learn, lean into that learning or that space, the better everything is. Better relationships are. I've
Yeah.
seen it happen not only in myself, but like we are in a relationship business. So those are the things that you have to keep intact. So you have to learn not only your strengths, but interpersonal communication skills. Like you've got to learn those
Yes.
things. And everybody, again, we are all so, so very different, but
Yeah.
heavy nodding on that part.
Yes. Yeah. There's a difference between strengths and skills, right? Skills, going back to communication, I can go and learn communication as a skill. What I have as a strength is just a driver and a motivator. So how do I
Hmm.
identify the difference between the two, and then what do I focus on working on? And I
I
love,
love that.
again, as the leader, you can identify that. And one thing I always talk about, when it comes time to, I think of strengths this way, almost like, we're all going to the field trip as kids, right? We all want to go to the place. We're going to the field trip. We're going to the zoo. We're going to the planetarium. But in order for us to go, we need our permission slip, right? And one of the things I love about strengths is our permission slip is written by us. Like it's not written by, we're not asking our parents permission. We're not asking anybody permission. We're all getting on the bus. We're all going to go to this great place. We're going to have a blast. But to get on, right, we get to sign our own permission slip and say, I'm coming, but this is how I'm showing up. Right? This is Philip Ramos.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to get. And I'm excited. And as long as you're the bus driver saying, you're so come on in, let's go. Bring the best version of yourself and let's go to town.
Yes.
And I love that idea because then, right, we identify, oh, maybe Philip's going to struggle here. Maybe Philip's going to lean in here. Maybe Philip's going to be the loudest one in the bus, right? But that's okay. We need a Philip, right? Kind of thing. And so I think
Yep.
giving permission, it can go a long ways, to each other. Um,
Amen.
well,
So good.
thank you again. Thank you for being. And this is again. And I said this before our interview, before we started. Strengths is an opportunity for us to be vulnerable about, it'd be like, okay, this is where I'm great. This is where I struggle. This is where I overdo. Right. So I appreciate your willingness to be so vulnerable. Now, as the leader, who you are, what do you think? How is knowing your strengths made impacted your role? Or your experience in doTERRA, and how does and as a leader, how does that affect your interaction with your team, like as how you've been.
Mhm. I think it is personal development, right? Anytime we are trying to, I love that you keep saying this or said at the beginning, anytime we're trying to become the best version of ourselves, we uptick a notch, right? Like, and that's we're divinely created to improve and progress. And so anytime we are developing or moving up in that direction, elevating, if you will, that's a better version of me. And if I'm a better version of me, I'm a better version of helping you become a better version. And so to me, I almost think of it as it's just this ever growing. Our teams, we actually call ourselves ever growers because we're never done. A tree,
Yes.
like we're never done growing. We are always progressing and moving or trying to. And so that's what I would say strengths has done for me is it has been a not only like critical, I would say more pivotal. It's been a pivotal, like I can think of doTERRA before strengths and I can think of doTERRA after strengths. And I think my team would say the same thing. Doing the work, the inner work, the personal work, that's when to your, again, being vulnerable, that's when you can really start to build. And so that's what strengths has giving me and giving my team. We were joking a little bit about earlier is like it's kind of time to dust off some of this strengths because we had used it so heavily in the beginning, and I'm excited to it's never not exciting or there's never not new things to learn about strengths. We talked earlier for just a few minutes about looking at it in a different way, and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. It's always there to be accessed with a new passion, with a new excitement. And so I'm still excited. I'm still excited about strengths and implementing it and how it's going to change my life in doTERRA. So I'm still there.
I love it. I love it. And then looking at, I love how you talked about upticking, right? Because your
Mm-hmm.
leaders,
Up a
as a
notch.
leader, as a leadership in, sorry, as a leader in your organization, you also have leadership. And then when they're watching you uptick, right? They're seeing Nicole in there. I think that's often the behavior we want to model
Yes.
is we want to model the uptick, not how, right? Because you uptick maybe a little bit differently, and maybe there's principles I could apply, right? There's maybe some best practices that I'm like, oh, okay, she's doing this, so I can do this. She's doing this, I can duplicate that. But when we're talking about upticking specifically in strengths, right? It's an awareness journey. It's an individual journey that you got to go on to really dissect and figure out, well, how does this work for me, right? How does this work for me? Because I want that success. I want to do what she's doing. And so
Mm-hmm.
she's upticking, right? How can I really go on my own personal journey to learn what I need to learn so I can uptick like she is or like they are, and what's happening there. And I think that that's a great example of a leader still being a leader is you're still willing to uptick, right? You're still in the game of yourself. You're not sitting back and be like, I
Yeah.
mastered it. I got a couple of trophies back there, and I'm done,
Gosh.
right? But you're sitting
Uh,
there being like, okay, I'm ready to uptick, and let's see if we can uptick with our strength. Let's see if we can uptick with different dynamics.
yeah.
Because when people see that, they're like, well, shoot, Nicole's made it here. Maybe
You're
I got
still
to get on
going.
that bandwagon. I got to get on that, right? And I think that you talked about earlier about leaders, before, and going back to Simon Sinek, right? Eaters eat last, right? There's a reason why that
Yeah.
concept exists, is because we're not trying to push them into to growth. No, we're trying to lead them into growth. Yo, come on,
Yeah.
right? Let's go. I'm heading over here. Jump
So
on,
true.
and that's your futuristic, right? You know where you're going.
Yep.
You're like, guys, I got it. I got it. I got some routines. Come on, jump on.
I got some routines. Got some routines with responsibility.
That's right. That's right.
Just follow it. Just follow
That's
it.
great. So
So true.
in your leadership, in your role, how would you say, on a day-to-day basis, right? You're Nicole Moultrie, you're living your day-to-day, not just in your business, but how do
Yeah.
you see your strengths influencing on the day-to-day? Because I think that's one thing that people don't always connect the dots. They only connect it with,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm going to work, so this is how I
With
feel.
this hat on.
Yes,
Yep. When
yes,
I'm in this zone, I'm in this. When I'm in it's
yes.
funny you mentioned that because my husband often will say, like, I think I took my assessment with like my work hat on. I took it as this or whatever. But it's funny, this question, it made me think about my day-to-day life. Right now, I'm heavy into motherhood, it feels like, with running kids everywhere, and we're in all different development stages, and everyone's doing a million things. And I can absolutely see. So, if we're talking futuristic or learner, harmony, responsibility, focus, I can see those things in play in my text communication with other moms in carpool.
That's
I can
great.
see those things in play at communicating, who's doing what in the upcoming game with different assignments, or my sign up genius. Like I can see that in my church communication. I can see it in what I'm organizing. Today we've got an essential oil class, obviously, and I know that kind of goes back to work, but it's just threaded. doTERRA
Yeah.
is just threaded. Um, I can see as I'm prepping for that class my learner like, oh, okay, I want to put this other little statistic in here about how incredible our omegas are, whatever. It really, if you are looking harmony again, like you can see them throughout your day all day long. It's because it's what's innate, it's what
Yes.
is so natural to me.
Yes.
And I think what's really neat about that is people, like, you don't have to look farther than what you already have.
Yes.
You have it. You have come prepared with everything that you need. We're just going to develop it.
Yes. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Is so many people come to this, let's just say this business or this industry, and they feel unprepared, right? They feel
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't have
Uh,
success because I didn't do this. I don't have the experience. I don't have the background. I didn't own a wellness center. I didn't do all these different things
yeah.
that people in their mind
I'm
think,
not
I don't
building
have a net.
online.
Yeah, yeah, I don't have an influence. I have 2 followers on Instagram, right? And so people
Yeah.
think, oh, I guess I can't do it. I guess I can't be successful. But I love that you said people come with already what's innate in them. And us as leaders, right, our job is to develop them, bring them up, lift them up, and say, no,
Yeah.
you have what it takes. Let me show you, right? Let me connect the dots to what you have and how to be successful. And so I think that's super awesome. That's super awesome. And then again, going back to I love that you brought up Charlie, right? You brought up Charlie and
Oh
going
gosh,
back to like
yes.
your strengths and every day. So you're probably using your strengths to be like, okay, how can
Working.
I work with this gal to help her be better?
Yep. She's
What
my
are,
biggest.
what are her strengths? How can I help
And
her?
she's amazing. But you do think that too. Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure I have said those words after frustration, being like, and she's amazing. These
Yes.
are her
Yes.
strengths. They're not these, but they are these,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. Okay, so now in regards to switching into you see him every day, you're in your business, this is who you are. What do you think, being on the strengths journey you have, because you have a lot of strengths, and I would say not necessarily maybe well, and you've obviously been through trainings. We talked about the people that you've learned from, of your relationship with Melinda. You've been in since the beginning. You took your assessment in 2018. You helped write and be involved in the strengths guide and that sort of thing. So how has what has probably been one of the greatest things, like if you can share it with people, and I kind of shared it with mine, what is the greatest thing that you've learned on your strengths journey?
I think I know you said not as a leader, but I think anytime you can help someone see their own value,
Mm,
that's life changing.
mm,
Life changing. If you want to use the thing that everyone uses, like game changer, when people can see their own value,
mm.
um, magic happens. Like it just does. Whether that happens in doTERRA, I don't even care. Like
Yeah.
I want them to see their value and their potential, um, how big it is, how vast it is, and how, again, it's already there. You don't have to go looking for it somewhere. Like you're complete. You are great how you are. And that's life changing. It
You know,
really is.
one of the things, and this is from a little bit of a spiritual note. So when you look up talent in the dictionary, okay, because I always define the difference between skill and talents. When you look up talent
Mm-hmm.
in the dictionary, it's a gift that's been bestowed upon you. And I think about that all the time, that when we look at what makes us special, what makes us unique, sometimes in a world where we're trying to find ourselves, we're searching for things, we're looking for validation, we're looking for just a hope, right? We go back to
Yep.
a glimpse of hope. And then when you look at these strengths, these are it's been bestowed, it's been whatever word
That's
you want
big.
to use. That's huge, right? Isn't that massive? Like
Mhm.
when I think about that, and for someone to own it and be like, you're right? My communication, my positive, you're right. That is a gift. That is something that has been you've been enshrouded about, right? I think of all these words
Yeah,
like
it's a big one.
that encompass this idea, and in the moment, in the moment that gives me goosebumps. You want to make
Yeah.
Philip feel great, is make him feel like what is inside of him is of value, is of worth. You know, again, going back to Charlie, both my kids have taken the strengths assessment. Both of
Yeah.
them took, my oldest took it when he was 17, my youngest took it when he was 13. And we still, in our family, every day we talk about strengths. But all the time, my youngest, my youngest is now 15 years old, and all the time he'll be like, Papa, tell me about my strengths. What is great about me? I'm like, you know what? Let me pour some love on you, little guy, because I think that,
Sweet.
again, that's an example of, in this world, unfortunately, it's not as kind sometimes, right? We can get involved in organizations and teams and have coaches, teachers, environment, bosses, where some of these things that we naturally do aren't always celebrated, right? They're not always
Yep.
encouraged. They're not always. And so for someone to go on this journey and to identify, just like what you said, you got it in you. Bring that to the table, and let's light it on fire, right? Let's have some fun with
Yeah.
it. Let's pour some fuel on it and show you what's amazing about you. So I love that you acknowledge that and you see that, because that's, again, probably in your position, you've probably seen that a lot, right? A lot of people come to the table questioning, do I, and there you are, that support.
It's a beautiful thing to see someone like just being them, their genuine selves. It is, I'm attracted to it. Like it's a magnetic for me. Like you think of the people you interact with. It's almost actually, it's like when you're like looking for gold, like you have like
Yeah.
a beep, beep, beep. I don't even know what that thing is called. Like if you're looking for gold on a beep, on a beach,
The
when
metal
someone
finder.
is, yeah, the metal detector. Thank
There
you. I
you
was
go.
like,
There you
what
go.
is that word? The
Yeah.
metal detector. When someone isn't living in their genuineness. I don't even know the right word. If they're not, right? It's almost like I can hear it like beep, 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 beep. You can feel it.
Yes.
And the opposite is true when they are.
Yeah.
It's this like beautiful, like, good on you. Like you have got it figured out, you know? So I agree. I wrote that talent is a gift that has been bestowed upon you. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I loved that when I read that. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So in closing here, Nicole, what is, thank you so much, by the way. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing stories. Thank you for, opening the space for other people to think, well, gosh, I want to develop who I am. I want to uptick. I love that. I love that you said that. What do you think now, people that are going to watch this? In my experience, right, we have two different types of people that when we look at strengths, people that took the assessment and started their journey, or
Mm-hmm.
looked at it, read it, and just shelved it, right? Or
You're
you have
right.
the second person that is like, what is this strengths thing even they're talking about, right? They don't even know what it is, right? And now they got to go take it. So when someone that's either restarting or starting their new journey, what recommendation would you give, if you all the things today, because you know a lot, right? You've been around the block when it comes down to development, you've been around the block when it comes down to strengths. So if you had, what would you say the most valuable thing that you could offer to someone that is starting this journey, that is starting their strengths journey? What would be the greatest tip you could offer?
Um, Again, great question, Philip, and I'm always taking notes. I would say the first thing that I would do is commit to not just shelving it. Just say, okay, if I'm committed to taking the assessment, I'm committed to taking a deeper dive on it. Okay. And if again, you're a leader, whether you like it or not, we always say we're a strengths-based leadership. And frankly, if you're in doTERRA, we're a strengths-based company. Part of our training is strengths-based. You will hear that vernacular all the time. But one of the two things I would tell you to do next is absolutely purchase Strengths-Based Leadership, which is a book
Great
that's
book.
incredible.
Great book.
And another book that is incredible is Anchor to Your Strengths by Melinda Breck Eisen. So
Okay.
those two books are going to help you keep your commitment of taking a deeper dive after you've done the assessment. Because again, it is going to be cool when you get your talents, you get your strengths, and you're like, oh my gosh, that is me. That is totally me. This is me. And you're going to laugh about it. You're going to show your spouse and you're going to show your friends, and you're like, it is. And then you're going to get started. But the recommendation or the encouragement would be to get those next two books and take a deeper dive. And then once you get rolling with that, you'll be talking about it like us at the dinner table.
That's right. That's right. It's like a mainstream conversation, right? As we're walking down
Yes.
the street, I love what you said. Huh. So let me ask you a couple questions. What strength do you have? Right. I love that.
You're an activator, aren't you? Yep, I know
Through and
it.
through. Through
Like
and through. It's what I
so
do.
funny.
I love it. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much again for being vulnerable, for sharing.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. In my experience, we can learn so much from others, right? What are other successful people doing? What are some of the habits that they have? And as we dive into this, right? Hal Elrod, right? As we're, Miracle Morning. He literally said he
Yep.
watched all these successful people and said, okay, what are they doing? I know I'm going to
Yep.
pick one routine, write a book about it, right? And I love that, so let's take a look at what great people are doing to uptick, to celebrate themselves, to do things. And when you look at where strengths works with 90% of Fortune 500 companies, you have over 1,000
Incredible.
colleges and university worldwide that have strengths programs encouraging, so let's take a look at this development opportunity and identify how can people show up to be the best versions of themselves and show up authentically each day. And strengths is a key component of engagement. Because as we talked before, right? If someone's not engaged in their goals, their whys, their dreams, the
Yep.
expectations, how are they supposed to find success in this business, or any business for that matter, or anything that they're doing in life, relationships? And so I think that's just absolutely
True.
critical. So
So true. Mic drop. That was perfectly wrapped up with a bow. So good. I just wanted to say thank you for rekindling, reminding me of my passion and love for strengths. Like it's always there, but it's time to bring it kind of back up to the top, which is exciting. It's again ever growing, ever learning, ever upticking. Commit to the process of becoming great, and that process never stops. There's not a deadline. There's not an age. There's not a with this company, with that company. It's just a process. And so thank you so much. You're doing incredible work. It has been an absolute pleasure. So thank
well,
you again, Philip.
thank you tons. Thank you tons. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you for joining another Spotlight series here with Nicole Moultrie. Thank you for joining us here in the Strength Studio. Please email us. So I'll put the email on the link. We'll send out some free information on how to, utilize your strengths, some of the 10 top things you can do once you get your strengths report. We're super excited for the continuing interviews that we have. Please look at our theme insights and take a deeper dive into each theme. We're just super excited to bring you great information, great people, great stories to empower you and lead you to the success that you're looking for in your life. So thanks again. Thank you, Nicole, and have yourself a beautiful day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.